She's drowning. Somebody help her. Lily's scream tore across Thunder Lake, but the music drowned every word. Maggie Brennan, wife of the most dangerous man in Nevada, was sinking. 9 minutes without air. 9 minutes until brain death. And the only person who saw it was an 18-year-old runaway hiding under a dock, starving alone, with nothing but $43 and her dead mother's ring. She had every reason to stay hidden. Every reason to let a stranger die. She dove in anyway. What happened next would change everything. Subscribe now, follow this story to the end, and comment your city below. I want to see how far this journey travels. The water was cold against Lily Cole's bare feet, but she barely noticed anymore. 3 weeks of sleeping outside had taught her body to ignore discomfort. Hunger was harder to ignore. The smell drifting from the barbecue 50 yards away made her stomach cramp so hard she had to press her fist against her belly to keep from groaning out loud. 18 years old, 3 weeks on the run, and hiding under a dock like a rat while a motorcycle club partied above her. This is rock bottom. Lily whispered to herself, this has to be rock bottom. But she knew better. She'd thought she'd hit rock bottom at the Henderson house, then again at the Marshalls, then again the night she slept behind a dumpster in Reno while it rained. Rock bottom, she'd learned, had a basement, and that basement had a basement, and you could keep falling forever if you weren't careful. Through the gaps between the old wooden planks, Lily watched the bikers moving around the lakeside clearing. There had to be 60 of them, maybe more. Men with beards and leather vests, women with tattoos and hard eyes, children running between the picnic tables, chasing each other with hot dogs in their hands. They called themselves the Iron Wolves. Lily had heard the name whispered at the gas station 3 days ago when she'd asked the attendant if there was somewhere safe to sleep nearby. Stay away from Thunder Lake this weekend, the old man had warned her. Iron Wolves are having their summer gathering. Those are Hell's Angels, girl. Real ones. You don't want any part of that. But Lily had nowhere else to go. The lake had a dock. The dock had shadows underneath. And shadows were the closest thing to safety she'd known in 3 weeks. So here she was watching dangerous people eat hamburgers while her own stomach tried to digest itself. Maggie, you want another beer? The shout came from somewhere near the grills. Lily's eyes tracked to the source, a heavy-set man with a red bandana wrapped around his bald head. I'm good, Tony, a woman's voice called back. Saving room for dessert. Lily found the woman easily. She'd been watching her for the past 2 hours. Maggie Brennan, silver-streaked hair that caught the late afternoon sun, a black tank top that said property of iron across the back, jeans, shorts, and bare feet. She moved through the crowd like a queen moving through her court, stopping to hug this person, kiss that person's cheek, ruffle a child's hair. Everyone loved her. That much was obvious, and everyone feared the man who stood beside her. Jack Iron Brennan, president of the Iron Wolves, 6 feet 4 inches of muscle and menace, gray beard, cold eyes, hands that looked like they could crush a man's skull without much effort. But when he looked at his wife, those cold eyes went soft. When she whispered something in his ear, his scarred face broke into a smile that transformed him completely. 25 years married, Lily had heard someone say. 25 years, and he still looks at her like that. 25 years. Lily couldn't imagine it. She couldn't imagine 25 days of stability, let alone 25 years. The longest she'd stayed in any foster home was 11 months, and that had ended with a broken arm and a lie she'd been forced to tell the social worker. Fell down the stairs, she'd said, her arm throbbing in its cast. Just clumsy, I guess. The social worker hadn't believed her. Lily had seen it in her eyes, but believing and acting were two different things, and the system was overloaded and there was nowhere else to put her. And so she'd gone back to that house for another 3 months until she aged out of one program and into another. Foster care was supposed to end at 18. Freedom, they'd called it. Independence. What a joke. Freedom meant no more checks for the families who'd housed her. Independence meant she was finally completely, utterly alone. Lily had lasted 2 weeks in the group home they transitioned her to. Then Marcus Henderson had shown up as a volunteer mentor, and everything had gone to hell. She still remembered his hand on her shoulder, the way he'd leaned in too close, the smell of his cologne, sweet and heavy and wrong. You're a pretty girl, Lily. Pretty girls need someone to look out for them. She'd gotten out that night, climbed out a bathroom window at 3 in the morning with nothing but the clothes on her back and the small emergency bag she'd learned to keep packed years ago. 3 weeks later, here she was, under a dock, watching strangers eat food she couldn't afford, wearing the same jeans she'd worn for 8 days straight. The sun was getting lower. Soon it would set, and the bikers would pack up, and Lily would emerge from her hiding spot to pick through their garbage. She'd done it before. Wasn't as bad as people thought. Rich people threw away half-eaten sandwiches all the time, untouched fruit, bags of chips with plenty left inside. You could survive on a garbage if you weren't picky. Hey, iron speech. The chant started near the beer coolers and spread quickly through the crowd. Iron Brennan held up his hands trying to wave them off, but his people wouldn't let it go. Speech, Maggie laughed and pushed her husband toward a picnic table. Give them what they want, baby. You know they won't stop. Iron climbed up onto the table, his boots heavy on the weathered wood. The crowd cheered. He waited for silence, then began to speak in a voice that carried easily across the clearing. 22 years ago, I took this club over from my old man. We had 37 members and a reputation for being the craziest bastards in Nevada. Cheers and whoops from the crowd. Today we got 200 members across 4 chapters, and our reputation, he paused, grinning. Well, our reputation ain't changed much. Laughter now. Lily found herself almost smiling despite everything. But here's what has changed. 22 years ago, I was an angry young man with a chip on my shoulder and a death wish in my heart. Didn't care if I lived or died. Didn't care about nothing except the next fight, the next ride, the next bottle of whiskey. He looked down at Maggie, who stood at the base of the table with her hand on his boot. Then this woman walked into my life, and everything changed. The crowd went quiet. Even the children stopped running around. Maggie Brennan saved my life, Iron continued. Not once, not twice. Every single day for 25 years. She gave me a reason to wake up, a reason to be better, a reason to build something instead of just tearing things down. He reached down and Maggie took his hand. So today we're not just celebrating another summer gathering. We're celebrating 25 years of the best decision I ever made. 25 years of this woman putting up with my stubborn ass. It hasn't been easy. Maggie called out and everyone laughed. No, it hasn't, Iron agreed, but it's been worth it. Every damn day. He raised his beer bottle high. To Maggie, my old lady, my best friend, my reason for everything. To Maggie, the crowd roared back. Under the dock, Lily felt something twist in her chest. Not hunger this time. Something else. Something that felt dangerously close to longing. She'd never had anyone look at her the way Iron looked at Maggie. She'd never had anyone raise a toast to her, declare her their reason for everything. She'd never had anyone, period. Her mother had tried. Lily remembered that much. Before the drugs took over completely, there had been good moments. Swimming lessons at the public pool. Bedtime stories, a lullaby sung in a voice that cracked from emotion. You're my whole world, baby girl, her mother used to say. My whole entire world. But the drugs had been stronger than love. They always were. And by the time Lily was 8, her mother was gone, not dead, just gone. Vanished into the system of rehabs and relapses, and eventually, inevitably, prison. Lily still wore her mother's ring on a chain around her neck, silver tarnished, worthless to anyone but her. It was the only thing she had left of a woman who had chosen heroin over her own daughter. The speech was ending now. Iron climbed down from the table and the music started up again. People returned to their conversations, their food, their drinks. Lily watched Maggie move toward the water's edge, her silver hair swaying as she walked. I'm going for my sunset swim, Maggie called back to her husband. Don't eat all the pie while I'm gone. No promises, Iron shouted back, and the people around him laughed. Maggie waded into the lake, the water rising from her ankles to her knees to her waist. She was a good swimmer, Lily could tell from the way she moved. Confident, comfortable. She'd probably been swimming in this lake for years. Within minutes, Maggie was far from shore, her arms cutting through the water in smooth, practiced strokes. The setting sun painted the lake in shades of gold and red, and for a moment it was beautiful. Peaceful. Perfect. Lily's eyes grew heavy. The warmth of the late afternoon combined with 3 weeks of barely sleeping was catching up to her. Maybe she could rest for a few minutes. Close her eyes. Let the sound of the water and the distant music lull her into something like peace. She was almost asleep when the splashing started. At first, Lily thought it was normal. Just Maggie swimming, maybe doing some kind of stroke that made more noise than usual. But then she opened her eyes and her blood turned to ice. Maggie wasn't swimming anymore. She was thrashing. Her arms weren't making smooth strokes, they were flailing, desperate, wild. Her head went under the water, came back up, went under again. Lily sat up so fast she banged her head on the dock above her. Help! Maggie's voice was thin, distant, almost swallowed by the music from the shore. Help me cramp my leg. Lily looked toward the party. The music was loud. People were talking, laughing, drinking. No one was looking at the lake. No one saw what was happening. Someone help her! Lily screamed, but her voice barely carried beyond the dock. 3 weeks of hunger and dehydration had stolen her strength. She's drowning, help. Nothing. No response. The music kept playing. People kept laughing, and Maggie kept sinking. Lily watched the silver head disappear beneath the surface again. This time it didn't come back up. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. The water where Maggie had been was smooth now. Calm, as if no one had ever been there at all. This isn't happening, Lily told herself. This can't be happening. But it was. A woman was drowning 50 yards away, and no one knew except Lily. Don't get involved, a voice in her head warned. These aren't your people. This isn't your problem. You've got enough troubles of your own. The voice sounded reasonable, logical, safe. But another voice, softer, older, almost forgotten, whispered something else. The water doesn't care who you are, baby girl. It just takes. You either save someone or you watch them drown. There's no in between. Her mother's voice, from the swimming lessons years ago, from before everything fell apart. 20 seconds now, maybe 30. Maggie hadn't surfaced. Lily looked at her backpack, shoved into the darkest corner under the dock. Everything she owned was in there. Her money, her clothes, her mother's ring. If she left it, someone might steal it. If she went into that water, she might not come back out. Maggie was a grown woman who'd been underwater for half a minute already. The chances of saving her were slim. The chances of drowning alongside her were very real. Stay hidden, the first voice insisted. Stay safe. You've survived this long by not taking stupid risks. 40 seconds. 45. And then Lily was moving. She didn't decide to move. Her body just did it. Her hands shoved the backpack deeper into the shadows. Her feet kicked off her worn sneakers. Her legs propelled her out from under the dock and into the fading sunlight. The lake water hit her like a slap, colder than she expected, shocking after hours in the warm air under the dock. It rose to her knees, her waist, her chest. Then the bottom dropped away, and she was swimming, her arms and legs working together in a rhythm she hadn't used in years, but had never forgotten. Her mother had taught her well. Lily swam toward the spot where she'd last seen Maggie, counting seconds in her head. 55, 60, 65. Every second mattered. Every second was brain cells, dying organs, shutting down the distance between life and death, growing wider. When she reached the right area, or what she hoped was the right area, she stopped treading water, looking around desperately. Nothing but ripples and reflections. She would have to go down. Lily filled her lungs with air, as much as they could hold. Then she dove. The water was murky green-brown with algae and sediment stirred up by summer swimmers. Lily couldn't see more than a few feet in front of her, her hands stretched out, reaching, searching, finding nothing but water and weeds. Her lungs started to burn. She'd been under for maybe 20 seconds. She needed more time. Maggie needed more time. Lily kicked deeper, fighting against her body's desperate urge to surface. The pressure built in her ears, her chest, her head. Spots danced at the edges of her vision. And then through the murk, she saw something pale. An arm. A leg. Silver hair floating like seaweed. Maggie lay at the bottom of the lake, her eyes closed, her body still. Her foot was tangled in something old fishing line wrapped around a submerged branch, holding her down like an anchor. Lily's lungs screamed for air. Her body demanded she surface. But she swam toward Maggie instead, reaching for the tangled foot, her fingers finding the fishing line and pulling. It wouldn't break. Lily pulled harder, the thin line cutting into her fingers. Blood clouded the water around her hands, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Her vision was going dark at the edges. Her chest felt like it would explode. The line snapped. Lily grabbed Maggie around the waist and kicked. Kicked with everything she had. The surface was so far away. Too far. They weren't going to make it. They were both going to die at the bottom of this lake, and no one would even know until their bodies floated up days later. But Lily kept kicking, and the darkness kept growing. Just when she thought her lungs would give out, she broke through to air and light and sound. She gasped, choked spit out lake water. Maggie was dead weight in her arms, not breathing, not moving. The shore looked impossibly far away. The music was still playing. People were still laughing. "Help!" Lily screamed, her voice stronger now, raw with desperation. "Help us, please!" This time someone heard. Tony, the bald man with the red bandana, looked up from the grill. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened in a shout that finally cut through the music. "Holy shit! Maggie's in the water. Something's wrong." Everything after that happened fast. People started running toward the lake. Iron Brennan was the first one in the water, moving faster than a man his size should be able to move. His face was a mask of pure terror, not the cold, controlled expression of a dangerous man, but the raw panic of a husband watching his wife die. "Maggie, baby, hold on, I'm coming." He reached them in seconds, his powerful arms churning through the water. He grabbed Maggie from Lily, pulling her against his chest, turning immediately towards shore. "Is she breathing?" someone shouted. "I don't know." Iron's voice cracked. "I don't know. She's not moving. She's not." Other hands grabbed Lily, pulling her toward the beach. She was too exhausted to swim anymore, too drained to do anything but let herself be carried. By the time her feet touched bottom, Iron had already laid Maggie on the sand. Her skin was blue-gray. Her lips were purple. Her chest wasn't moving. Iron started CPR, his massive hands pressing down on Maggie's sternum, his mouth covering hers to breathe air into her lungs. "Come on, baby. Come on. Don't you leave me. Don't you dare leave me." Push, push, push. Breathe, push, push, push. Breathe. Lily stood at the edge of the crowd, dripping wet, shivering despite the warm evening air. Her cut fingers dripped blood onto the sand. Her whole body shook with exhaustion and adrenaline, and something else, fear maybe, or shock. She couldn't tell anymore. A woman with short red hair appeared beside her. Ruby, someone had called her earlier. Ruby, the enforcer's wife. Ruby, who kept the books and asked the hard questions and didn't suffer fools. "You pulled her out?" Ruby asked, her voice sharp. Lily nodded, unable to speak. "Where did you come from? You're not one of us." Lily's voice came out as a croak. She swallowed, tried again. "I was under the dock, hiding. I saw her go under." Ruby's eyes narrowed. "Hiding? For how long?" 3 days. Before Ruby could respond, someone in the crowd gasped. Lily looked toward Maggie and saw something that made her heart stop. Maggie's body was still. Iron had stopped doing CPR. His hands were on his face, his shoulders shaking. "No," Lily thought. "No, no, no. This can't be happening. I got to her. I pulled her out. She can't be." And then Maggie coughed. Water erupted from her mouth and she turned onto her side, coughing and choking and gasping for air. Her eyes flew open, blue, confused, alive. "Dave," she croaked, reaching for her husband with a trembling hand. What happened?" Iron gathered her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear if he let go. His whole body shook with sobs. "You're okay," he kept saying. "You're okay, you're okay, thank God you're okay." The crowd around them erupted, cheers and crying and prayers of thanks. Someone called 911. Someone else ran to get blankets. In the chaos, Lily started to back away. She'd done what she could. Maggie was alive. Now it was time to get her backpack and disappear before anyone started asking more questions. She'd taken 3 steps toward the dock when Iron's voice cut through the noise. "Wait!" Lily froze. Iron was looking at her now, his arms still wrapped around his wife. His eyes were red from crying, but there was something else in them too. Something intense and focused. "You," he said. "The girl who pulled her out. Come here." Every instinct, Lily had screamed at her to run. These were Hell's Angels. Dangerous people. She'd been spying on them for 3 days. They could hurt her, kill her. make her disappear without a trace, but her legs wouldn't move. And something in Iron's voice, not threatening, not cold, but almost grateful, kept her rooted in place. Slowly, she walked toward the group gathered around Maggie. Iron studied her as she approached. He took in her thin frame, her wet clothes plastered to skin that showed too many bones, the dark circles under her eyes, the way she hunched her shoulders like she was bracing for a blow. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily, what?" "Cole, Lily Cole." "How old are you, Lily Cole?" 18. Ruby made a sound beside her, and she says she was hiding under the dock for 3 days. Iron's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. 3 days, he repeated. "And you just happened to see Maggie go under," Lily nodded. "The music was loud," Iron continued. "We were all talking, drinking. Nobody else noticed, but you did." "I was watching, Lily's face flushed. "I'm watching in a creepy way. There was nothing else to do, and she seemed nice. The way she was with everyone, the way you looked at her during the speech." She snapped her mouth shut, horrified at how much she'd revealed. But Iron didn't look angry. He looked surprised, maybe even moved. "She was underwater for at least 3 minutes, someone said. A man with a medical patch on his vest had knelt beside Maggie and was checking her vital signs. "Maybe longer. Her foot was caught in something at the bottom. This girl must have dove down and freed her." "Fishing line," Lily said quietly. "Old line wrapped around a branch. It wouldn't break. I had to." She held up her hands, showing the cuts on her fingers. Maggie, still wrapped in Iron's arms, turned her head to look at Lily. Her blue eyes were wet with tears, her face pale but very much alive. "You saved me," Maggie whispered. "You dove down into that dark water and you saved me." Lily didn't know what to say. She'd never saved anyone before. She'd barely managed to save herself most days. "Where are your parents?" Iron asked. "They should know what you did today." The question hit Lily like a physical blow. She looked down at her bare feet, her toes covered in sand and blood from her cut fingers. "I don't have any parents," she said. "I'm on my own." Silence fell over the group. Even the children had stopped making noise, sensing that something important was happening. "On your own," Iron repeated. "At 18 years old, hiding under docks. For how long?" 3 weeks, Lily admitted, "since I left my last placement." "Placement?" Ruby asked sharply. "You mean foster care?" Lily nodded, still not looking up. "What made you leave?" This from Maggie, her voice gentle despite her ordeal. The question hung in the air. Lily thought about lying, making up some story about wanting independence, seeking adventure, some romanticized version of running away. But these people had almost lost someone they loved tonight. They deserved the truth. "His name was Marcus Henderson," Lily said quietly. "He was supposed to be a mentor, came to the group home to help kids like me. Except that's not what he wanted to do." She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. The silence around her grew heavy with understanding. "I climbed out a window in the middle of the night," Lily continued. "I didn't have anywhere to go, so I just kept moving. Bus stations, parks, under bridges. I heard about the lake, thought it might be a safe place to rest for a while." Iron and Ruby exchanged a look that Lily couldn't read. "When's the last time you ate?" Iron asked. Lily shrugged. "Day before yesterday. Found half a sandwich behind the gas station on Route 15. "Jesus Christ," someone muttered. "A sandwich," Iron said slowly, "from a garbage can 2 days ago." "I've had worse," Lily said, and the matter-of-fact way she said it seemed to hit the gathered bikers harder than anything else. In the distance, sirens wailed. The ambulance was getting close. Maggie struggled to sit up despite Iron's protests. "Jack," she said, using her husband's real name. "Jack, look at her." "I'm looking." She risked her life, for me, a stranger. She had nothing to gain and everything to lose, and she did it anyway. "I know. We can't just let her go back to sleeping under docks." Iron looked at Lily, really looked at her. For a long moment, she felt like he could see everything, every bruise she'd ever hidden, every lie she'd ever told social workers, every night she'd gone to bed hungry and scared and alone. "You're right," he said finally. "We can't." The ambulance pulled up to the edge of the clearing. EMTs jumped out with their bags and equipment, rushing toward the group on the beach. Sir, we need to assess your wife, one of them said to Iron. How long was she unconscious? Too long, Iron said, and way too long. But she's breathing now, she's talking. The EMTs got to work checking Maggie's vital signs, asking her questions, preparing to transport her. This one needs medical attention too, Ruby said, nodding toward Lily. She was diving in that water for a while. And look at her hands. Those cuts need to be cleaned. One of the EMTs glanced at Lily. She should come with us. We should check for secondary drowning at least. I don't have insurance, Lily said automatically. I can't afford. She's coming. Iron interrupted. And don't worry about the bill. She's with us. Lily blinked. With you, for now, Iron said, until we figure out what comes next. The EMTs loaded Maggie onto a stretcher. Iron stayed by her side, holding her hand, never letting go. Before they lifted her into the ambulance, Maggie reached toward Lily. Come here, Maggie said. Lily stepped forward hesitantly. Maggie took her hand, her cold, pale fingers wrapping around Lily's cut ones. You gave me back my life, Maggie said simply. I'm not going to forget that. Neither is anyone here. Then the EMTs were lifting the stretcher, and Iron was climbing into the ambulance beside his wife, and Lily was being guided toward the second ambulance that had arrived. As they loaded her in, she caught Ruby's eye through the crowd. My backpack, Lily said, suddenly, panic rising in her chest. It's still under the dock. Everything I have. I'll get it, Ruby said. Don't worry. It'll be there when you wake up. When I wake up. But before Ruby could answer, the exhaustion Lily had been fighting finally won. The adrenaline drained out of her like water from a broken cup. Her body sagged, her eyes rolled back. The last thing she heard was an EMT calling her name as the darkness rose up to swallow her whole. Lily opened her eyes to bright white lights and the smell of antiseptic. Hospital. She was in a hospital. For a moment, she didn't know where she was or how she'd gotten there. Then the memories came flooding back, a lake, the drowning woman, the desperate dive into murky water. Maggie. Was Maggie okay? Lily tried to sit up, but her body wouldn't cooperate. Every muscle ached. Her throat was raw. Her hands were bandaged white gauze wrapped around her cut fingers. Easy there, hero. Ruby sat in a chair beside the bed, a magazine open in her lap. She looked like she'd been there for a while. How long was I out? Lily asked, her voice hoarse. About 6 hours, Ruby said. Doctor says you were severely dehydrated and malnourished, Svetin. Plus the exhaustion from the rescue, your body just shut down. 6 hours. Lily looked toward the window where morning light was starting to filter through the blinds. Maggie, she asked, down the hall, awake and talking. The doctors are calling it a miracle. Ruby set aside her magazine. 9 minutes underwater. That's how long Iron was doing CPR before she started breathing again. 9 minutes. People don't come back from that. But she did. 9 minutes. Lily remembered the eternity she'd spent at the bottom of that lake trying to free Maggie's foot. It had felt like hours. Maybe it had been. You dove down there 3 times, Ruby continued. Did you know that first time you couldn't find her? Second time you found her but couldn't get her free. Third time, she shook her head. Third time you were down there so long and we thought we'd lost both of you. Lily didn't remember making 3 dives. She barely remembered anything after the first plunge into the water. I just did what anyone would have done, she said. Ruby laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. No, you didn't. I've been around the club for 20 years. I've seen men twice your size freeze up when things go bad. I've seen so-called tough guys run from a fight. What you did risking your life for a stranger with nothing to gain, that's not common. That's rare. Lily didn't know how to respond to that. No one had ever called her rare before. No one had ever called her anything except trouble. My backpack, she said, changing the subject. Did you, Ruby reached down beside her chair and lifted the familiar blue backpack. It looked cleaner than Lily remembered, like someone had wiped off the dirt. One of the boys found it right where you said, Ruby confirmed. We didn't go through it. Your stuff is all still there. Lily clutched the backpack to her chest, feeling the hard edges of her possessions through the fabric. Her clothes, her book, her mother's ring. Thank you, she whispered. Ruby studied her for a long moment. Iron wants to talk to you. So does Maggie. They sent me to sit with you until you woke up. Why? Because they want to make you an offer, Ruby said. And they wanted me to prepare you first. An offer. Lily's grip on the backpack tightened. What kind of offer? Before Ruby could answer, the door opened. Iron Brennan walked in looking less intimidating than he had at the lake. He was wearing regular clothes instead of his leather vest, and there were dark circles under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept at all. Behind him came Maggie in a wheelchair pushed by a nurse. She was pale and tired-looking, but her eyes were bright, alive. "There she is," Maggie said, smiling. "There's my guardian angel." "I'm not an angel," Lily said automatically. You're just the girl who saved my wife's life," Iron interrupted. "Which makes you family, whether you like it or not." Family. The word hit Lily like a punch to the chest. "You don't know me," she said. "I could be anyone. A thief, a liar. I was hiding under your dock watching you. That's creepy. That's stalker behavior." That's survival behavior," Ruby corrected. "I know the difference, believe me." Iron pulled a chair close to Lily's bed and sat down heavily. This close, Lily could see the emotions he was struggling to control, the gratitude, the fear that hadn't fully faded, the fierce protectiveness that extended now somehow to include her. "Here's what I know," he said. "You're 18 years old. You have no family, no home, no money. You've been living on the streets for 3 weeks, eating garbage and sleeping under docks. The system failed you, some piece of shit, pretending to be a mentor, saw a vulnerable kid and tried to take advantage. You ran because running was safer than staying." Lily's hands trembled. Hearing her story laid out so plainly, so brutally, made it more real than it had felt in weeks. "But here's what else I know," Iron continued. "When you saw a stranger drowning, you didn't hesitate. You didn't think about yourself. You dove into that water, and you nearly died trying to save her. That tells me more about who you are than anything else could." Maggie wheeled her chair closer. "We have an extra room," she said. "A guest room that's been sitting empty for years. It has a bed and a closet and a window that looks out over the lake." Lily shook her head. "You can't just—" "We can," Iron said firmly. "We want to. You need somewhere safe to stay, and we have space. It's that simple." "Nothing's that simple," Lily argued. "What about social services? I aged out of foster care, but there are still—" "The social worker already came by," Ruby said. "Around 3 this morning. We told her you were with family, that you're staying with us." "But I'm not—" "You are now," Maggie said gently, "if you want to be." Lily looked at the 3 faces surrounding her bed, Iron with his scarred hands and soft eyes, Maggie alive and breathing because of something Lily had done, Ruby who understood about running away from men with wandering hands. They were offering her something she'd never had. A place, a family, safety. It felt too good to be true. In Lily's experience, things that felt too good to be true usually were. "Why?" she asked the question tearing out of her. "Why would you do this? I'm nobody. I'm just a runaway foster kid with nothing to offer." Iron leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "Because you saved her," he said simply. "Because when you had every reason to stay hidden and look out for yourself, you risked everything for a stranger. That's not nothings, Lily. That's everything. And in our world, when someone saves one of us, they become one of us." "Think about it," Maggie added. "That's all we're asking. Stay with us for a while. Get your feet under you. And then if you want to leave, we'll help you get wherever you want to go. No strings attached." Lily clutched her backpack tighter. Inside, pressed against her chest, she could feel the outline of her mother's ring. "Water can save you or kill you," her mother had said years ago in that chlorine-filled public pool. "Respect it, but don't fear it." The water had almost killed Maggie yesterday, but somehow, impossibly, it had given Lily something she'd thought she'd never have. A chance. "Okay," she heard herself say. "I'll stay, for now." Iron nodded once as if he'd expected nothing less. Maggie's face broke into a smile that made her look years younger, despite her exhaustion. "One more thing," Ruby said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a phone, new still in its packaging. "Iron wanted you to have this, so you can call us if you ever need anything." Lily stared at the phone like it might bite her. "I can't accept that. It's too much." "It's not enough," Iron said, "but it's a start." He stood up, moving toward the door. Maggie's nurse started to wheel her back out too. "Rest today," Maggie called over her shoulder. "When the doctor clears you, we'll take you home." And Lily, "Oh, yeah." Thank you for everything." Then they were gone and Lily was alone with Ruby, who was watching her with an expression Lily couldn't quite read. "What?" Lily asked. "Nothing," Ruby said. "Just wondering what you're thinking right now." Lily looked at the phone in her hands, then at her backpack with everything she owned inside, then at the bandages wrapped around her fingers, proof of what she'd done in that lake. "I'm thinking," she said slowly, "that I don't know how to be someone's family. I don't know how to have a home. I've been on my own so long, I don't know how to be any other way." Ruby nodded. "That's fair. But here's the thing about the Iron Wolves. We're all damaged goods. Every single one of us. We've all got stories we don't tell in polite company. But we figured out how to be family anyway. How to look out for each other. How to have each other's backs." She stood up, gathering her magazine. "You'll learn, if you want to, and if you don't," she shrugged. "Then at least you'll have had some good meals and a real bed for a while." She headed for the door, then paused. "Your mother's ring," she said without turning around. "The one on the chain around your neck. You kept reaching for it while you were unconscious, holding it like it was an anchor." Lily's hand went automatically to her chest where the ring hung beneath her hospital gown. "It's all I have left of her," she admitted. Ruby turned just enough for Lily to see her profile. "My mother gave me a bracelet before she died. Cheap thing, turquoise and silver, probably cost $5 at a roadside stand. I've worn it every day for 30 years. She held up her wrist and Lily saw the bracelet faded, the turquoise cracked in places, but clearly loved. "Some things aren't about what they're worth," Ruby said. "They're about what they mean. You held on to that ring through everything, foster homes, the streets, hiding under docks. That tells me you know what matters." She opened the door. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." Then she was gone and Lily was alone. She lay back against the pillows, her bandaged hands resting on her stomach. Outside the window she could hear birds singing, cars passing, the normal sounds of a world that had kept spinning while she'd been unconscious. 24 hours ago she'd been under a dock, starving alone, watching strangers live a life she'd thought was impossible for someone like her. Now she was in a hospital bed, with a phone she hadn't paid for, and a family she hadn't earned, and somewhere down the hall was a woman who was alive because Lily had chosen to dive into dark water instead of staying safe in the shadows. "Water can save you or kill you," Lily whispered to the empty room. Which one is this? She didn't know the answer. Maybe there wasn't one. Maybe the water had done both, killed the girl who hid under docks and gave birth to someone new. Someone who had, for the first time in her life, made a choice that mattered. Someone who had saved a stranger's life. Someone who had a place to go. Lily closed her eyes and for the first time in 3 weeks, she slept without dreaming of running. The drive from the hospital to Iron and Maggie's house took 20 minutes, but to Lily it felt like crossing into another universe. She sat in the back seat of Ruby's pickup truck, her backpack clutched on her lap, watching unfamiliar streets pass by the window. Her bandaged hands throbbed with each heartbeat. The cuts from the fishing line were deeper than she'd realized. The doctor had needed 12 stitches total. "You okay back there?" Ruby asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "Fine," Lily said automatically. It was the answer she always gave. Fine. She'd been fine when foster parents forgot to feed her. Fine when other kids stole her things. Fine when grown men looked at her in ways that made her skin crawl. Fine was a shield. Fine kept people from asking more questions. Ruby didn't push. She just nodded and turned her attention back to the road. Iron was driving ahead of them on his motorcycle, the rumble of the engine audible even through the closed windows. Maggie had been released from the hospital that morning, and she was at home waiting for them against doctor's orders. She'd insisted on preparing the guest room herself. "She's stubborn," Ruby had explained. "Nearly drowns, and 2 days later she's making beds and baking cookies. That's Maggie for you." The house appeared around a bend in the road, and Lily's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't a mansion. Nothing fancy, just a 2-story wooden house with a wraparound porch and a view of Thunder Lake in the distance. But to Lily, who had spent weeks sleeping under bridges and behind dumpsters, it might as well have been a palace. Iron pulled his motorcycle into the driveway and cut the engine. Ruby parked beside him, and for a moment nobody moved. "This is it," Ruby said. "Home sweet home. Well, they're home, but yours too now." Lily's hand tightened on her backpack strap. "I don't know if I can do this." "Do what?" any of it. Lily's voice cracked. I don't know how to live in a house. I don't know how to be part of a family. What if I mess it up? What if they realize I'm not worth the trouble? Ruby turned around in her seat, her eyes meeting Lily's. Listen to me, she said firmly. You saved Maggie's life. You dove into dark water when you could barely swim, when you hadn't eaten in days, when you had every reason to stay hidden and safe. That's not nothing. That's not someone who isn't worth the trouble to Demez. But no buts. Ruby's voice softened. I know you're scared. Hell, I'd be scared too. But Iron and Maggie aren't the kind of people who make offers they don't mean. If they say you're family, period. Before Lily could respond, Iron appeared at the truck's window and opened the door. You coming in or you planning to live in Ruby's back seat? It wasn't harsh. There was even a hint of humor in his voice, but Lily still flinched before she could stop herself. Iron noticed. His expression shifted, something flickering across his scarred face. Nobody's going to hurt you here, kid, he said quietly. Not ever. You understand it, Dean. Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Now come on. Maggie's been cooking all morning, and if we don't eat it while it's hot, she'll never let us hear the end of it. Lily climbed out of the truck on shaky legs. The gravel crunched under her worn sneakers as she followed Iron toward the house. Each step felt monumental. Each step took her further from the life she'd known and closer to something completely unknown. The front door opened before they reached the porch, and Maggie appeared in the doorway. She looked better than she had in the hospital color, back in her cheeks, her silver-streaked hair brushed and shining. But there were still shadows under her eyes, still a fragility to her movements that hadn't been there before the drowning. There she is, Maggie said, smiling widely. Get in here, sweetheart. I've got lunch ready and the guest room all set up. Lily hesitated at the bottom of the porch steps. Mrs. Brennan, I really appreciate everything, but I don't want to be a burden. If this is too much trouble. First of all, it's Maggie, not Mrs. Brennan. That makes me sound like my mother-in-law, God rest her soul. Maggie came down the steps and took Lily's unbandaged hand. Second of all, you saved my life. Having you here isn't a burden. It's an honor. But you don't know me, Lily protested weakly. Then we'll get to know each other, Maggie said simply. That's how it works. Now come inside before the soup gets cold. She tugged Lily up the steps and through the front door, leaving no room for further argument. The inside of the house smelled like chicken soup and fresh bread. Lily's stomach cramped painfully at the scent, real food, homemade food, not scraps from a dumpster or half-eaten sandwiches from gas station trash cans. Sit, Maggie commanded, pointing to a chair at the kitchen table. You too, Jack. Ruby, you're staying for lunch. Wouldn't miss it, Ruby said, sliding into a seat. Iron sat down heavily, his bulk making the wooden chair creak. Lily perched on the edge of her own chair, ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. Maggie ladled soup into bowls, the steam rising in fragrant clouds. She set the first bowl in front of Lily along with a thick slice of bread slathered with butter. Eat, Maggie said. Doctor said you were malnourished and we're going to fix that. Lily stared at the food, her hands trembled as she picked up the spoon. The first taste nearly made her cry. It was just chicken soup, nothing fancy. But it was hot and rich and made with care, and Lily couldn't remember the last time someone had cooked something specifically for her. Good, Maggie asked, watching her. Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak without breaking down completely. They ate in relative silence for a few minutes. Lily tried to pace herself to eat slowly like a normal person, but her body had other ideas. Before she knew it, the bowl was empty, and she was staring at the bottom, mortified. More, Maggie asked, already reaching for the ladle. I couldn't. You can and you will. Maggie refilled the bowl. You've got weeks of missed meals to make up for. Eat as much as you want. 3 bowls later, Lily finally pushed back from the table. Her stomach was fuller than it had been in months, maybe years. She felt almost dizzy from it. Thank you, she said quietly. I don't have words. You don't need words, Iron said. Just keep eating like that, and Maggie will be happy forever. He's not wrong, Maggie admitted. I love feeding people. It's my thing. Ruby stood up, checking her phone. I need to head out. Club business. But Lily, she fixed the girl with a serious look. You need anything, you call me. My number's already in that phone Iron gave you. I will, Lily said, though she couldn't imagine actually calling anyone for help. She'd never had that luxury before. Ruby left and suddenly it was just the three of them, Lily, Aaron, and Maggie sitting in a kitchen that smelled like home. So, Iron said, leaning back in his chair, we should talk about what happens next. Lily's stomach clenched despite the food in it. Here it came. The conditions, the rules, the catch. We're not going to keep you prisoner here, Iron continued. You're 18, legally an adult. You can leave whenever you want. But while you're here, there are some things we need to discuss. Like what? Lily asked warily. Like the fact that we want to become your legal guardians. The words hit Lily like a truck. She stared at Iron, certain she'd misheard. What? Maggie reached across the table and took Lily's hand. We talked about it last night. Well, argued about it, really. Jack thought it was too soon to bring up. I thought waiting would be stupid. Guardians, Lily repeated the word foreign on her tongue. But I'm 18. I don't need guardians. Not legally, no, Iron agreed. But having us as official guardians gives you certain protections. Health insurance, a permanent address, someone to call in an emergency. It doesn't change anything about your freedom. You're still an adult, still able to make your own choices. It just gives you a safety net. Lily's mind raced. She'd never had a safety net. She'd never had anyone willing to catch her if she fell. Why, Paolo? She asked, the question coming out more desperate than she intended. Why would you do this? You barely know me. Iron and Maggie exchanged a look, the kind of look that spoke of decades of marriage, of conversations held without words. Because it's the right thing to do, Maggie said finally. Because someone should have done it years ago and nobody did. Because I looked into your eyes when you were pulling me out of that water and I saw something I recognized. What? Loneliness, Maggie said softly. The kind that goes bone deep, the kind that makes you think you're not worth saving. Lily's throat tightened. You dove into that lake expecting to die, Maggie continued. Don't deny it. I saw it in your face when they pulled us out. You weren't thinking about surviving. You were just thinking about saving mi amor. That's not... It is. Maggie's grip on Lily's hand tightened. And I want you to know something, Lily Cole. You are worth saving. You are worth fighting for. And as long as I'm breathing, which is only because of you, I'm going to make sure you know that. Lily felt something crack inside her, something she'd built years ago, a wall to keep out hope, because hope always led to disappointment. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to be someone's anything. Neither did I, Iron said gruffly. When I met Maggie, I was a mess. Angry at the world, angry at myself. I didn't know how to love someone without destroying them. But she taught me, slowly, painfully, and now, he reached over and put his massive hand over his wife's. Now I can't imagine my life without her, he finished. That's what family does. It teaches you things you never knew you needed to learn. Lily looked at their joined hands, at the simple gold bands they both wore, at the easy intimacy of people who had been together for 25 years. Can I think about it? She asked. The guardian thing. I need time. Take all the time you need, Maggie said. The offer doesn't expire. Iron stood up his chair, scraping against the floor. I've got to head to the clubhouse for a few hours. Club business. Maggie, you should rest. And Lily. He paused, looking down at her. Welcome home, kid. Then he was gone, the rumble of his motorcycle fading into the distance. Maggie stood up too, starting to clear the dishes. Lily jumped to her feet immediately. Let me help. You don't have to. I want to. Lily gathered the bowls, careful with her bandaged hands. Please, I need to do something. Maggie smiled. All right, you wash, I'll dry. They worked side by side at the sink, the warm water soothing Lily's aching fingers through the bandages. The silence between them was comfortable, not awkward. It was strange. Lily had expected to feel like an intruder in this house, but somehow she didn't. Can I ask you something? Lily said after a while. Anything. What happened in the lake, I mean? You're a good swimmer. I watched you for days, so what went wrong? Maggie's hand stilled on the dish she was drying. Cramp, she said finally. Bad one in my left calf. I've gotten them before, but never like that. It seized up completely, and I couldn't straighten my leg. I tried to float, tried to call for help, but the music was so loud. She trailed off, her eyes distant. And then my foot got caught in something, she continued. Fishing line, you said. I didn't even feel it at first. I just knew I couldn't get back to the surface. I tried and tried, but something was holding me down. Lily remembered the moment she'd found Maggie at the bottom of the lake. The terror of seeing those closed eyes, that blue-tinged skin. I thought I was going to die, Maggie said quietly. I really did. I remember thinking about Jack, about how he'd survive without me, about all the things I never got to say to him. But you didn't die. Because of you. Maggie turned to face Lily directly. You came out of nowhere, this skinny, starving girl who'd have been hiding under our dock. And you saved me. I just did what anyone would have done. No, Maggie shook her head firmly. You did what most people wouldn't even think about doing. There were 60 iron wolves at that party, and not one of them noticed I was drowning. But you did. You noticed and you acted. Lily didn't know what to say. She'd never thought of herself as brave. Desperate, maybe, reckless, but not brave. The water was so dark, she said finally. I couldn't see anything. I just kept reaching, hoping I'd find you. And when you did, I didn't think about whether I could save you. I just knew I had to trim. Maggie set down the dish she'd been drying and pulled Lily into a hug. It was sudden and fierce, and Lily stiffened instinctively before forcing herself to relax. Thank you, Maggie whispered. I will never stop thanking you. When they separated, both of them had wet eyes. Okay, Maggie said, dabbing at her face. Enough of that. Let me show you your room. She led Lily up a narrow staircase to the second floor. There were 3 doors, one leading to what was obviously the master bedroom, one to a bathroom, and one that stood slightly ajar. Maggie pushed the 3rd door open and stepped aside. This is yours, she said, for as long as you want it. Lily stepped into the room and stopped breathing. It wasn't large, just a bed with a blue comforter, a dresser with a mirror, a small desk by the window. But to Lily, who had spent years in group homes and foster houses where nothing was ever really hers, it was everything. The closet's empty, Maggie said. Ready for your things. And the window looks out over the lake, same lake, but from a different angle. I thought you might like that. Lily walked to the window and looked out. She could see Thunder Lake in the distance, sparkling in the afternoon sun. From here it looked peaceful, beautiful, not like a place where someone had almost died. It's perfect, she said, her voice thick. There's one more thing. Maggie walked to the dresser and opened the top drawer. Inside were clothes, jeans, t-shirts, underwear, socks, all new tags still attached. Ruby picked these up this morning, Maggie explained. She guessed at your size. If anything doesn't fit, we'll exchange it. Lily stared at the drawer full of clothes, new clothes that had never belonged to anyone else. I can't accept this, she said. It's too much. It's not nearly enough, Maggie countered, but it's a start. Lily reached out and touched a soft gray t-shirt. Her fingers trembled. Why are you doing this? She asked for what felt like the 100th time. I keep asking and you keep answering, but I still don't understand. People don't just take in strangers. People don't just buy clothes for someone they met 2 days ago. Maggie sat down on the edge of the bed and patted the space beside her. Lily hesitated, then sat. I'm going to tell you something I don't talk about much, Maggie said. When I was your age, maybe a year older, I was in a bad situation. Real bad. There was a man who... She paused, her jaw tightening. Well, you can probably imagine. Lily could all too well. I ran, Maggie continued, like you did. Ended up on the streets, no money, no family, no hope. I thought I was going to die out there. Actually hoped for it some days. What happened? I met Jack. A small smile crossed Maggie's face. He found me sleeping behind the clubhouse one night. I thought he was going to hurt me or throw me out. Instead, he gave me his jacket and a hot meal and a place to stay. Just like that. Just like that. He didn't ask for anything in return. Didn't want anything from me except for me to be safe. Maggie's eyes grew distant with memory. It took me months to believe it was real. Months to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it never did. And you married him. Eventually, after he proved himself about 1,000 times over. Maggie turned to look at Lily. My point is, I know what it's like to be where you are. I know how hard it is to trust anyone. But Jack gave me a chance when no one else would, and it changed my entire life. I want to do the same for you." Lily felt tears threatening again. She blinked them back fiercely. "I don't know if I can be what you want me to be," she admitted. "I don't know if I can be a daughter or a family member or whatever this is supposed to turn into." "You don't have to be anything," Maggie said firmly. "Just be yourself. That's enough." The words hit Lily harder than anything else that had been said today. Just be yourself. That's enough. No one had ever told her that before. Not the social workers, not the foster families, not the counselors or teachers or anyone else who'd cycled through her life. Everyone had always wanted her to be something else, quieter, more grateful, less trouble. But Maggie was looking at her with nothing but acceptance in her eyes. No expectations, no demands, just acceptance. "Okay," Lily said finally. "I'll stay. I'll try." Maggie's face broke into a smile that lit up the whole room. "That's all we ask." She stood up and headed for the door, then paused. "Dinner's at 6? Nothing fancy, just pasta?" "Jack should be back by then." She hesitated. "And Lily?" "The bathroom's right next door. There's shampoo and soap and clean towels. Take as long as you want." She closed the door gently behind her. Lily sat on her bed, and looked around the room. Her room. The tears she'd been holding back finally came, silent and hot, streaming down her face and dripping onto the blue comforter. She cried for the little girl who'd lost her mother to drugs, for the child who'd bounced from foster home to foster home, never belonging anywhere, for the teenager who'd learned that the only person she could rely on was herself. She cried for the woman she might become if she could let herself believe that this was real. And when the tears finally stopped, she got up, grabbed the softest clothes from the drawer, and headed to the bathroom for the first real shower she had had in 3 weeks. The hot water felt like absolution. 2 hours later, Lily came downstairs to find Iron back from the clubhouse. He was sitting at the kitchen table with Maggie, their heads bent together over some papers. They looked up when Lily appeared in the doorway. "Well, look at you," Maggie said warmly. "Clean clothes, clean hair. You look like a new person." Lily touched her still damp hair self-consciously. "I hope that's a good thing." "It's a great thing. Come sit. Jack has something to tell you." Lily's stomach tightened. She sat down across from them, bracing herself. "So," Iron began, "I made some calls this afternoon about Marcus Henderson." Lily's whole body went cold as Shaba. "What? The man from the group home? The mentor who made you run?" Iron's voice was flat, controlled, but there was something dangerous underneath it. "I wanted to know more about him." "Why?" Lily's voice came out as a whisper. "Why would you do that?" "Because what he did to you, what he tried to do, that's not something that gets swept under the rug. Not in my world." "Jack," Maggie said warningly. "I'm not going to do anything illegal," Iron said, though his expression suggested he'd very much like to. "But I have friends in law enforcement, good people who owe me favors, and I asked them to look into Henderson." Lily's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "What did they find?" Iron slid one of the papers across the table to her. It was a printout, a news article dated 3 weeks ago. "Marcus Henderson was arrested 2 days after you ran," Iron said. "Another girl came forward, reported what he did to her. The police found evidence on his computer. Bad evidence. He's being held without bail." Lily stared at the article. The words blurred and swam before her eyes. "He's in jail," she asked, not quite believing it. "He's in jail, and he's not getting out anytime soon." Iron leaned forward. "You're not the only one he hurt, Lily, but because you ran, because you got away, you might have saved yourself from something much worse." "I thought," Lily swallowed hard, "I thought no one would believe me. I thought if I reported him, they'd just send me back." "The system failed you," Maggie said gently. "It fails a lot of kids, but that doesn't mean everyone will." Lily looked at the paper again. Marcus Henderson, arrested, in jail. She'd been so scared. For 3 weeks, she'd been looking over her shoulder, waiting for him to find her. And all along, he'd been behind bars. "There's more," Iron said. "The detective working the case wants to talk to you. Not to pressure you into anything, just to see if you have any information that might help build the case against Henderson." "You don't have to," Maggie added quickly. It's completely your choice. But if you want to, Jack can set up a meeting. Lily thought about the night she'd run, the fear, the desperation, the certainty that no one would help her, that she was completely alone. Yes, she said quietly. I'll talk to them. Iron nodded. I'll make the call. He stood up and left the room phone already in hand. Maggie reached across the table and squeezed Lily's hand. You're incredibly brave, she said. You know that, right? Lily shook her head. I don't feel brave. I don't know, like everything is happening too fast. That's okay. You don't have to feel brave to be brave. Maggie smiled. Now come help me with dinner. Cooking always helps me think. They made pasta together, nothing fancy like Maggie had said. Spaghetti with meat sauce and garlic bread. But Lily found herself enjoying it more than she'd expected, following Maggie's instructions, stirring the sauce, learning the small rituals of a kitchen that was slowly starting to feel like home. Iron came back as they were setting the table. Detective's coming by tomorrow morning, he announced. Name's Sarah Chen. She's good people. I told her your situation, that you're just getting settled. She said she'll be gentle. Thank you, Lily said, meaning it. They sat down to eat, and for a while the conversation turned to lighter topics. Iron told stories about the early days of the club. Maggie shared embarrassing anecdotes about their wedding. Lily mostly listened, but she found herself smiling more than she had in years. This is what normal feels like, she thought. This is what family feels like. The thought terrified her as much as it comforted her. After dinner, as Maggie was clearing the dishes, there was a knock at the front door. That'll be Tony, Iron said, pushing back from the table. He's dropping off some paperwork. But when he opened the door, it wasn't Tony. It was a woman Lily had never seen before. Tall, blonde, with cold eyes and a mouth set in a hard line. Hello, Jack, the woman said. It's been a while. Iron's whole body went rigid. What are you doing here, Caroline? I heard you took in a stray, some runaway who pulled Maggie out of the lake. The woman peered past Iron, her eyes finding Lily. Is that her? This doesn't concern you. Everything about this club concerns me. Or have you forgotten who my father was? The tension in the room spiked so suddenly that Lily could feel it pressing against her skin. Maggie had gone very still by the sink, her face pale. Your father is dead, Iron said flatly, and his debts died with him. You have no claim here. We'll see about that. Carolyn smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Enjoy your little rescue project, Jack. I'm sure it'll end well. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness beyond the porch. Iron slammed the door shut. Who was that? Lily asked into the silence. Iron and Maggie exchanged a look heavy with history, weighted with secrets. Nobody, Iron said finally. Just a ghost from the past. But the way he said it made Lily certain that whoever Caroline was, she was anything but nobody. And whatever debt Iron had mentioned, it wasn't as dead as he claimed. Lily couldn't sleep that night. She lay in her new bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Carolyn's cold smile over and over in her mind. The way Iron had tensed, the way Maggie had gone pale, whatever history existed between them, it wasn't good. Around midnight, she heard voices downstairs. Low, urgent. She crept to her door and opened it a crack. Can't just ignore her, Jack. She's dangerous. Maggie's voice, scared in a way Lily hadn't heard before. I'm not ignoring her. I'm handling it. How by pretending she doesn't exist that worked so well last time? Last time was different. Last time someone died. Silence. Heavy and terrible. Lily's heart pounded against her ribs. Someone died. What had she walked into? I'll call a meeting tomorrow, Iron said finally. The whole club needs to know she's back. We'll figure this out together. And what about Lily? Another pause. What about her? Caroline saw her, and she knows we've taken someone in. If she thinks she can use that girl to get to us, she won't. You don't know that. I won't let it happen, Maggie. I swear on my life. Lily closed the door silently and pressed her back against it. Her hands were shaking. She'd thought she was escaping one dangerous situation by diving into that lake. Instead, she'd landed in another one. Part of her wanted to grab her backpack and run. It's what she knew, what she was good at. Running had kept her alive this long. But another part, a newer, more fragile part, remembered Maggie's soup, Iron's gruff kindness. The first real bed she'd slept in for months. She wasn't ready to give that up. Not yet. Morning came gray and overcast. Lily dressed in her new clothes jeans that actually fit a soft blue sweater and went downstairs to find Maggie alone in the kitchen. Coffee? Maggie asked as if nothing had happened last night. Please. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table. Lily wrapped her hands around the warm mug, gathering courage. Who is Caroline? She asked. Maggie's cup paused halfway to her lips. You heard us talking. Some of it. Maggie set down her coffee with a sigh. I suppose you deserve to know. You're living here now. You should understand what you've gotten yourself into. Tell me. Maggie took a deep breath. Caroline's father was Victor Holt. He was the president of the Iron Wolves before Jack. A long time ago, before I came along. What happened to him? He died. Prison riot about 15 years back. But before that, Maggie's jaw tightened. Victor was not a good man. He ran the club like a dictatorship. Drugs, guns, things I won't even name. Jack was his second in command, but he hated what Victor was turning the club into. So Jack took over. Not exactly. There was a conflict. Victor accused Jack of betrayal, tried to have him killed. It didn't work. Victor ended up in prison for a long list of crimes, and Jack took over the club. Cleaned it up, made it what it is today. Lily processed this. And Caroline. Caroline was Victor's daughter, his princess. She worshipped her father, blamed Jack for his downfall. She disappeared after Victor went to prison. We thought she'd moved on, built a life somewhere else. Maggie's voice hardened. Apparently we were wrong. What does she want? I don't know, revenge maybe, or money. Victor always claimed he had hidden assets, money the feds never found. Carolyn might think Jack knows where it is. Does he? Maggie met Lily's eyes. No. And even if he did, he'd never touch it. That money came from suffering, from drugs and trafficking, and worse. Jack would burn it before he'd spend a cent. The front door opened, and Iron walked in with Ruby close behind. Both of them looked grim. Detective Chen's here, Iron announced. She's waiting in the truck. Wanted to give you a minute to prepare. Lily's stomach dropped. She'd almost forgotten about the interview. I'll be fine, she said, standing up. Let's get it over with. Detective Sarah Chen was a small woman with sharp eyes and a kind smile. She shook Lily's hand firmly and suggested they talk on the porch where it was quiet. I know this is difficult, Chen said once they were settled. I want you to know that you're not in trouble. You're a witness, not a suspect. Anything you tell me will only help put Henderson away for longer. Lily nodded, her throat tight. Can you tell me about your interactions with Marcus Henderson? Lily closed her eyes. The memories she had tried so hard to bury came flooding back. He started coming to the group home about 6 months ago, she said slowly. Said he wanted to mentor the older kids, help us prepare for aging out of the system. And how did he interact with you specifically? At first, it seemed normal. He'd bring snacks, help with homework. The staff loved him. They thought he was this great guy giving back to the community. When did things change? Lily's hands clenched in her lap. About 2 months in, he started paying more attention to me, finding reasons to be alone with me. He'd put his hand on my shoulder, my back, tell me I was special, that he could tell I was different from the other kids. Did you tell anyone? I tried. I told one of the staff members. She said I was probably misreading things, that Mr. Henderson was just being friendly. Chen's expression remained neutral, but Lily saw something flicker in her eyes. Anger, maybe. What happened the night you left? Lily took a shaky breath. He cornered me in the laundry room. It was late, everyone else was asleep. He said he'd been waiting for me to turn 18 so things wouldn't be complicated. What did he do? He grabbed my arm, tried to kiss me. I kneed him and ran. Lily's voice cracked. I didn't stop running until I was 3 blocks away. Then I just kept going. Chen made notes on a small pad. You did the right thing, both by defending yourself and by leaving. It didn't feel like the right thing. It felt like running away. Sometimes running away is the bravest thing you can do. Chen looked up from her notes. Lily, would you be willing to testify against Henderson if this goes to trial? The question hung in the air. I don't know, Lily admitted. I've spent my whole life trying to be invisible, standing up in a courtroom, telling everyone what happened. You don't have to decide now. But I want you to know that your testimony could help put this man away for a very long time. He's hurt other girls, probably more than we even know about. Lily thought about the other kids at the group home, the younger girls who'd started to catch Henderson's attention, the ones she'd left behind. Yes, she said finally. If it goes to trial, I'll testify. Chen smiled. Thank you. That's incredibly brave. After the detective left, Lily sat on the porch alone for a while. Her whole body felt drained like she'd run a marathon. Talking about Henderson reliving those memories, it had cost her more than she'd expected. The screen door creaked open and Maggie came out with 2 cups of tea. Thought you might need this, she said, handing one to Lily. Thanks. They sat in silence for a while, watching the wind ripple across Thunder Lake in the distance. I was 17 when I testified against the man who hurt me, Maggie said quietly. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I had nightmares for months afterward. Did it help testifying? Yes and no. He went to prison, which helped. But the memories didn't go away. They never really do. Maggie turned to face Lily. What helped most was building a new life, finding people who loved me, creating something good out of something terrible. Is that what you think I'm doing? Building a new life? I think you're at a crossroads. You can let what happened to you define you, or you can use it to become stronger. Maggie smiled gently. From what I've seen, you're already choosing the second option. Before Lily could respond, Iron's motorcycle roared into the driveway. He wasn't alone. 3 other bikes followed close behind their riders wearing Iron Wolves vests. Club meeting, Maggie said, standing up. About Caroline, you should probably hear this too. They gathered in the living room, Iron, Maggie, Ruby, and 3 men Lily had seen at the lake, but hadn't officially met. Iron introduced them quickly. Tony, the bald man with the red bandana. Mike, a younger guy with sleeve tattoos. And Bear, an enormous man whose nickname was obviously well-earned. Caroline Holt is back, Iron began without preamble. She showed up at my door last night. The reaction was immediate. Tony cursed. Mike's face went hard. Bear cracked his knuckles loud enough to make Lily flinch. What does she want? Ruby asked. Don't know yet, but she made a point of mentioning Lily. Iron glanced at her. Asked about the stray I'd taken in. All eyes turned to Lily. She fought the urge to shrink into her chair. Why would she care about me? Lily asked. Because you're new, Ruby explained. You're an unknown quantity. Caroline's looking for weaknesses, pressure points. She might think you're one. That's insane. I'm nobody. You're family now, Iron said firmly, which means Caroline sees you as a potential target. The word target sent ice down Lily's spine. So what do we do? Tony asked. We watch. We wait. We protect our own. Iron's voice was steel. Nobody goes anywhere alone until we know what Caroline's planning. That includes you, Lily. You don't leave this house without one of us. I'm not going to hide forever. Not forever, just until we figure out what we're dealing with. Lily wanted to argue, but she saw the fear beneath Iron's tough exterior. The same fear she'd seen in Maggie last night. These people weren't just worried, they were terrified of what Caroline might do. Fine, she agreed, but I want to help. I'm not going to just sit here while you all protect me. Iron studied her for a long moment. Fair enough. Ruby, take her to the clubhouse tomorrow. Introduce her around. If she's going to be part of this, she might as well know what she's getting into. The meeting broke up shortly after. Tony and Mike headed out on their bikes. Bear stayed for dinner at Maggie's insistence, and Lily learned that despite his intimidating appearance, he had a gentle soul and an encyclopedic knowledge of classic rock. But underneath the normalcy, tension hummed like a live wire. Every time a car passed on the road outside, heads turned. Every unexpected sound made hands reach for weapons. This is your life now, Lily told herself, for better or worse. That night she dreamed of drowning. But instead of saving Maggie, she was the one trapped at the bottom of the lake, fishing line wrapped around her ankles. She could see figures above the surface. Iron, Maggie, Ruby, but they couldn't see her. And standing on the dock, watching with a cold smile, was Caroline Holt. Lily woke gasping for air, her heart racing. It took a long time to fall back asleep. The clubhouse was not what Lily expected. She'd imagined something out of a movie, dark, smoky, filled with rough-looking men doing illegal things. Instead, Ruby pulled up to a converted warehouse that looked more like a community center than a biker hangout. Don't let the outside fool you, say, Ruby said, catching Lily's expression. This place has seen some things, but Jack cleaned it up when he took over. Now it's mostly a gathering spot. Parties, meetings, charity events. Charity events, Ruby grinned. The Iron Wolves do a toy drive every Christmas. Biggest one in the county. Jack's idea. He said if people were going to fear us, they might as well respect us too. Inside the clubhouse was warm and surprisingly welcoming. A long bar ran along one wall manned by a woman with gray-streaked hair and a no-nonsense expression. Tables and chairs filled the main space, and a pool table occupied one corner. A dozen people were scattered around, most wearing the familiar leather vests. They all looked up when Ruby and Lily entered. Everyone, this is Lily, Ruby announced. She's the one who saved Maggie. Iron says she's family now, so treat her accordingly. The response was immediate and overwhelming. People got up to shake her hand, to thank her, to welcome her. A grizzled man with one eye told her she had guts of steel. A woman with a baby on her hip said Maggie was like a mother to everyone in the club. By the time Lily had met everyone, her head was spinning. Overwhelming, right? Ruby said, steering her to a quiet corner. A little. You'll get used to it. The wolves are loyal to a fault. You saved one of our own, which means they'd all die for you now. Ruby flagged down the bartender. 2 beers, Donna. She's 18, Donna pointed out. She's been through more than most 50-year-olds. I think she's earned a beer. Donna shrugged and poured 2 glasses. Lily took a sip, grimacing at the bitter taste. She'd never been much of a drinker. So, Ruby said, leaning back, what do you think of this world you've stumbled into? I think it's complicated. That's one word for it. Ruby took a long drink. The Iron Wolves aren't angels despite the name. We've got history, we've got enemies, but we've also got each other, and that counts for something. What about Caroline? What's her history with the club? Ruby's expression darkened. Caroline was raised to be a princess. Victor spoiled her rotten, gave her everything she wanted. But he also filled her head with poison, taught her that the club belonged to the Holt family by right, that Jack was a usurper who stole what was hers. Is there any truth to that? Hell no, Victor was destroying this club, running it into the ground with his schemes and his cruelty. Jack did what had to be done. Ruby paused, but Caroline doesn't see it that way. To her, Jack's the villain who took everything from her. So what does she want now? That's the million-dollar question. Revenge, money, power. Ruby shook her head. Whatever it is, it won't be good for any of us. The door to the clubhouse banged open and Tony rushed in. His face was pale, his breathing ragged. Ruby, he gasped, we've got a problem. What kind of problem? The kind with gasoline and matches. Tony looked at Lily, then back at Ruby. Someone torched Mike's bike, left a note. What did the note say? Tony swallowed hard. It said, this is just the beginning. Give back what belongs to the Holts, or everything burns. Ruby was on her feet instantly. Where's Iron? On his way. Call everyone. Full lockdown until further notice. Ruby grabbed Lily's arm. You're coming with me. Now. They rushed outside to find chaos. Mike stood next to the smoking remains of his motorcycle, his face twisted with fury. Other club members were gathering, shouting questions, demanding answers. Iron's bike roared into the lot and he dismounted before it had fully stopped. Everyone inside, he commanded. Now, the club gathered in the main room, the atmosphere electric with tension and anger. Caroline Holt has made her move, Iron announced. This is a declaration of war. She wants something from us, and she's willing to burn us out to get it. So let's go get her, Bear growled. End this before it starts. We don't know where she is. We don't know how many people she has. We don't know what she's really after. Iron's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. Until we have answers, we play defense. For how long? Tony demanded. As long as it takes. Lily stood at the edge of the crowd, feeling utterly out of her depth. A week ago, she'd been hiding under a dock, worried about where her next meal would come from. Now she was standing in the middle of a biker war she didn't understand. Maggie appeared beside her, taking her hand. Scared? Maggie asked softly. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Maggie squeezed her hand. But remember, you are not alone anymore. Whatever happens, we face it together. Together, the word felt foreign on Lily's tongue. She'd never been part of a together before. But looking around at the people gathered in this room, rough, dangerous, fiercely loyal, she realized she wanted to be. Despite the fear, despite the danger, she wanted to belong to something bigger than herself. For the first time in her life, Lily had something worth fighting for. And she wasn't going to let Caroline Holt take it away. The meeting broke up into smaller groups, people strategizing, planning, arguing. Iron caught Lily's eye and motioned her over. "I need to ask you something," he said, his voice low, "and I need you to be honest." "Okay. Is there anyone from your past who might cause problems, anyone who might be looking for you?" Lily thought about it. "Henderson's in jail. My mother's been out of the picture for years. I don't have any other family. No one else. No ex-boyfriends, no enemies, no one with a grudge. I've been invisible my whole life," Lily said bitterly. "Hard to make enemies when no one even notices you exist." Iron nodded slowly. "Good, that's good. The last thing we need right now is another complication." But even as he said it, Lily felt a prickle of unease, something she'd forgotten, something buried deep in her memory. Before she could chase the thought, Ruby called out from across the room. "Jack, we've got movement at the south perimeter. 2 vehicles, unknown plates." Iron's hand went to his hip, where Lily now noticed a gun holstered beneath his jacket. "Everyone to positions," he ordered. "Lily, Maggie, back room. Now." Maggie grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward a door at the rear of the clubhouse. Behind them, the sound of weapons being drawn filled the air. "What's happening?" Lily asked as they ducked into what looked like a storage room. "Could be nothing," Maggie said. "Could be everything. We'll know soon." They waited in tense silence, listening to muffled voices from the main room. Minutes passed. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. Then gunfire. 3 shots, rapid and loud. Maggie pulled Lily down behind a stack of boxes. "Stay quiet," she hissed. "No matter what you hear." More shots, shouting, the sound of breaking glass, and then suddenly silence. The door to the storage room burst open. Lily's heart stopped. But it was only Ruby, gun in hand, breathing hard. "It's over," Ruby said. "They're gone." "Who were they?" Maggie demanded. Ruby's face was grim. "Caroline's people. They shot up the front of the building and took off. Warning shots, nothing serious." She looked at Lily. "But they left another message. This one was for you." "For me," Ruby held up a piece of paper crumpled and stained. Lily took it with trembling hands and read the words scrawled across it. "We know who you really are, Lily Cole. Ask your new family about the girl named Grace." The name hit Lily like a physical blow. Grace, her mother's name. The name Lily had spent years trying to forget. "Lily," Maggie's voice seemed to come from far away. "Lily, what is it? What does that mean?" But Lily couldn't answer. The memory she'd buried was clawing its way to the surface, bringing with it a truth she'd tried to escape her entire life. Her mother hadn't just been an addict who abandoned her. Her mother had been something else entirely, something connected to the Iron Wolves in ways Lily was only beginning to understand. Lily's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She stared at the note until the words blurred, until Grace stopped being a name and became just letters on paper. But she couldn't unsee it, couldn't unfeel the ice spreading through her veins. "Lily," Maggie's voice was gentle but insistent. "Talk to us. Who is Grace?" "My mother." The words came out flat, dead, like she was reading from a script about someone else's life. Maggie and Ruby exchanged a look. "Your mother's name was Grace Cole," Ruby asked. "Grace Marie Cole, before she married my father." Lily swallowed hard. "Before everything." Iron appeared in the doorway, his face tight with controlled rage. "Everyone's accounted for. No casualties, just property damage." His eyes found the note in Lily's hands. "What's that?" Ruby took it from Lily and handed it to him. Iron read it once, twice. His expression shifted from confusion to something darker. "Grace," he said slowly. "Why does Caroline care about someone named Grace?" "That's Lily's mother," Maggie explained. Iron's head snapped toward Lily. "Your mother, what's her connection to the Holts?" "I don't know, no." Lily's voice cracked. "I don't know anything. She left when I was 8. Drugs. That's all I ever knew." "There has to be more," Ruby pressed. "Caroline doesn't make random threats. If she's bringing up your mother, there's a reason." Lily pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to think, trying to remember. "There was a box," she said finally. "My mother had this metal box she kept hidden. She told me never to touch it. Said it was from before I was born, from a life she'd left behind. What happened to the box? I don't know. When she went to prison, all her stuff went to some storage unit. I never saw it again. Iron was already moving. We need to find that box. If there's something in your mother's past that connects to the Holts, we need to know what it is. How? Lily asked. I don't even know where the storage unit is. I was 8 years old. We'll figure it out. Iron's voice brooked no argument. Ruby, start digging. Grace Marie Cole, whatever records you can find. Prison records, arrest records, anything. On it. Ruby disappeared already on her phone. Maggie guided Lily to a chair, made her sit down. Breathe, Maggie said softly. Just breathe. But Lily couldn't breathe. Her mind was racing pieces of a puzzle she'd never known existed, suddenly demanding to be assembled. Why would Caroline Holt know her mother's name? Why would she use it as a threat? What had Grace Cole done before Lily was born? I need to see my mother, Lily heard herself say. Everyone stopped. What? Iron asked. She's in Nevada State Women's Correctional. Has been for 10 years. Lily looked up, her jaw set. If anyone knows what this is about, it's her. Lily, you haven't seen her in a decade, Maggie said gently. Are you sure you want to do this? No, but I don't have a choice. Iron studied her for a long moment. I'll make some calls. Get you on the visitor list. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Whatever we find, it might not be good. It already isn't good. Lily stood up, her legs steadier than she'd expected. At least now I'll know why. The drive to the prison took 4 hours. Lily sat in the back of Ruby's truck, watching the desert scroll by outside the window. Iron had wanted to come, but Lily had asked him to stay. This was something she needed to do alone. Well, almost alone. Ruby had insisted on driving her, and Lily hadn't had the energy to argue. You okay? Ruby asked for the 10th time. Stop asking. Sorry, force of habit. They rode in silence for a while longer. Then Ruby spoke again. I found some stuff about your mom. Lily's stomach clenched. What kind of stuff? Arrest records, mostly. She had a long history with drugs going back to her early 20s. But before that, Ruby hesitated. Before that, she was clean, had a decent job, a life. What changed? I don't know, the records don't say, but something happened when she was about 23. That's when everything fell apart. 23. Lily did the math. That would have been a few years before she was born. What else? She had connections to people in Reno, people who were in certain circles. Ruby glanced in the rearview mirror, circles that overlapped with the Iron Wolves. Lily felt sick. Are you saying my mother was involved with the club? I'm saying it's possible. The timing fits. Victor Holt was running things back then. He had his fingers in a lot of pies. So my mother might have known Victor, or worked for him, or been with him. Ruby's voice was careful. I'm speculating. But Caroline didn't pull your mother's name out of thin air. The rest of the drive passed in heavy silence. Nevada State Women's Correctional was exactly what Lily had expected. Gray walls, barbed wire, the crushing weight of institutional despair. She filled out forms, showed ID, submitted to a search. Every step felt like walking through quicksand. Then she was sitting in a visitation room, waiting at a metal table, her heart hammering so loud she was sure the guards could hear it. The door opened, and there she was. Grace Cole looked old. That was Lily's first thought. She was only 45, but she looked 60. Gray hair cropped short, deep lines carved into her face. Eyes that had once been bright, now dulled by years of incarceration and regret. But when she saw Lily, something flickered in those dead eyes. Something that might have been recognition, or hope, or fear. Lily, Grace's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Is that really you? Hi, Mom. Grace sat down across from her, hands flat on the table. The rules said no touching. Lily was grateful for that. I never thought you'd come, Grace said. After everything I did, I thought, I'm not here for a reunion. The words came out harder than Lily intended. Grace flinched like she'd been slapped. Then why are you here? Lily pulled out her phone and showed Grace the photo she'd taken of Caroline's note. Because of this. Grace read the message. Her face went white. For a moment, Lily thought she might pass out. Where did you get this? Grace asked, her voice shaking. Someone named Caroline Holt sent it. She's threatening people I care about, and she's using your name to do it. Lily leaned forward. What did you do, Mom? What's your connection to the Holts? Grace closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet with tears. I hoped this would never come back to you, she whispered. I tried so hard to keep you away from it. Away from what? From the truth. Grace took a shuddering breath. About who I was. About what I did. About who your father really is. Lily's blood went cold. What are you talking about? Dad died in a car accident when I was 2. That's what I told you. That's what I told everyone. Grace's hands were trembling now. But it was a late. But then tell me the truth. Grace looked around the visitation room as if afraid someone might be listening. Then she leaned in close. I was Victor Holt's woman, she said so quietly Lily had to strain to hear. For 3 years, from when I was 21 until I was 24. The words didn't make sense. Lily heard them, but her brain refused to process them. Victor Holt, she repeated. The president of the Iron Wolves, the one who went to prison. Yes. You were his, what girlfriend wife? Neither. I was his property. Bitterness crept into Grace's voice. That's how Victor saw women. Things to be owned, used, discarded. What happened? I got pregnant. Grace's eyes met Lily's. With you. The room tilted. Lily grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. No, she said. No, that's not possible. Victor didn't want children. When he found out I was pregnant, he ordered me to get rid of it. Get rid of you. Grace's tears were flowing freely now. I couldn't do it. I ran. Changed my name. Hid. So, my father... Lily couldn't finish the sentence. Victor Holt is your biological father. Grace reached across the table, forgetting the rules. I'm so sorry, Lily. I never wanted you to know. I thought if I just disappeared, if I kept you hidden, you'd be safe. A guard stepped forward. No touching. Grace pulled her hand back, but her eyes never left Lily's face. The drugs, Lily said slowly. That's when they started, isn't it? When you were running from Victor. I was scared, all the time. Every day I thought he'd find us. The drugs made me forget, made me numb. Grace's voice broke. But they also made me a terrible mother. I know that. I don't expect you to forgive me. Lily's mind was reeling. Victor Holt, the man whose legacy was destroying everything she'd started to build with the Iron Wolves. The man whose daughter was threatening everyone she cared about. Her father. Does Caroline know? Lily asked. Is that why she's doing this? I don't know how much she knows, but if she found out about you, if she realized Victor had another child... Grace shook her head. Caroline was obsessed with being Victor's only heir. She'd see you as a threat. A threat to what Victor's dead. The club belongs to Iron now. The club, yes, but not the money, Grace lowered her voice. Victor hid millions before he went to prison. Drug money, dirty money. He told Caroline it was her inheritance. But he also told me, that if anything happened to him, I should make sure you were taken care of. Are you saying I have a claim to Victor's money? I'm saying Caroline thinks you do, and she'll do anything to make sure you never collect. Lily sat back in her chair, overwhelmed. Her entire life had been built on lies. The father she'd never known, the mother who'd abandoned her, the circumstances that had led to every foster home, every hardship, every moment of loneliness, all of it traced back to this. To Victor Holt, to the Iron Wolves, to a legacy of violence and greed that had shaped her existence without her ever knowing. There's more, Grace said, her voice barely audible. More, how can there possibly be more? The box, the one I hid. Grace's hands twisted together. It has proof, documents, photos, account numbers, everything Victor gave me before I ran. I put it in storage years ago, but I never went back for it. Where, Tom? Henderson Storage, Unit 47. The key is, it was in my apartment when they arrested me. I don't know where it is now. Henderson. The same name as the man who'd made Lily run. Coincidence or something else? I'll find it, Lily said, standing up. Lily, wait. Grace's voice was desperate. Please, I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I need you to know I loved you. I always loved you. Every terrible choice I made because I was trying to protect you. Lily looked at the woman who had given her life and then abandoned her. The woman who had hidden the truth for 18 years. The woman whose secrets had put her in danger. I don't know if I can forgive you, Lily said honestly, but I believe you. About the love, at least. Grace nodded, tears streaming down her face. That's more than I deserve. Yeah, Lily agreed, it is. She walked out of the visitation room without looking back. Ruby was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against the truck with her arms crossed. Well, she asked. Lily climbed into the passenger seat and stared straight ahead. Victor Holt is my father. Ruby nearly dropped her phone. What? My mother was his woman. She ran when she got pregnant with me. Changed her name, hid from him, and eventually fell apart. Lily's voice was flat. Caroline is my half-sister, and apparently there's money involved. A lot of money. Ruby was silent for a long moment. Then she started the truck. Iron needs to know. I know. This changes everything, Lily. If you're Victor's daughter. I said I know. They drove in silence for 20 minutes before Ruby spoke again. How are you feeling? Lily laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. How am I feeling? I just found out my entire life was a lie. My mother abandoned me to protect me from a man who was already in prison. And now his psychotic daughter is trying to kill me over money I didn't even know existed. She turned to look at Ruby. How do you think I'm feeling? Fair point. Another long silence. There's a storage unit, Lily said finally. Henderson Storage Unit 47. My mother said there's proof in there, documents, account numbers, everything. We should check it out. That's what I was thinking. Ruby glanced at her. You sure you're up for this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Henderson Storage was a rundown facility on the outskirts of Reno, the kind of place where people kept things they wanted to forget. Lily and Ruby pulled up just as the sun was starting to set. Wait here, Lily said. I need to do this alone. Like hell you do. Ruby, Lily's voice was firm. This is my mother's stuff, my past. I need to see it first, before anyone else. Ruby didn't like it, that much was clear, but she nodded. 10 minutes. Then I'm coming in whether you want me to or not. Deal. Lily walked into the facility, her heart pounding. The manager was a bored-looking kid, barely older than her, who accepted her ID and a $20 bill without question. Unit 47's in the back, he said. Haven't been opened in years. Good luck with whatever's in there. The unit was small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Lily used the bolt cutters the manager had lent her to snap the old lock. The door creaked open. Inside, covered in dust and cobwebs, were the remnants of her mother's life before prison. Boxes of clothes, a broken lamp, books with water-damaged covers, and in the corner exactly where her mother had described a metal box. Lily's hands shook as she pulled it out. The lock had rusted shut over the years, but the bolt cutters made quick work of it. Inside, she found exactly what Grace had described. Photos of a younger Grace with a hard-faced man Lily now recognized from old newspaper clippings as Victor Holt. Documents with names and numbers that meant nothing to her, bank statements from offshore accounts, and at the very bottom a letter, addressed to her. To my daughter Lily, the envelope read, to be opened only when you're ready for the truth. Her mother's handwriting. From years ago, by the look of it. Lily opened the letter with trembling fingers. My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Either I'm dead or I've failed to protect you in some other way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. Your father was a monster. I didn't know that when I met him. By the time I understood what he really was, it was too late. I was trapped. But then I found out I was pregnant with you, and suddenly nothing else mattered. Not the money, not the danger, not my own life. I had to save you. Everything in this box is proof of what Victor did. The people he hurt, the money he stole, the lives he destroyed. I kept it as insurance. If anything ever happened to me, I wanted you to have the power to burn it all down. Caroline doesn't know about you. At least I hope she doesn't. But if she ever finds out, she'll come for you. Not because of the money, she has plenty of that, but because you represent something she can't accept, that she wasn't the only thing Victor loved. He loved you, Lily, in his own twisted way. He was furious when I ran, but not because I left him. Because I took you. His blood. His legacy. I don't know if that makes anything better. Probably it makes it worse. But I wanted you to know, whatever you decide to do with this information, know that I love you. I always have. And I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to be the mother you deserved. All my love forever, Mom. Lily read the letter 3 times before she could move. Then she gathered everything, the photos, the documents, the letter, and walked out of the storage unit. Ruby was pacing beside the truck. Well, she demanded, what did you find? Lily held up the box. Everything. Proof of what Victor did, account numbers, and a letter from my mother explaining all of it. We need to get this to Iron, now. I know. But as they drove back toward Thunder Lake, Lily's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Found what you were looking for. Good. Now you know what's at Osteita. Meet me at the old mill tomorrow at noon, alone, or everyone you love dies. Lily stared at the message. Her blood went cold. What is it? Ruby asked, noticing her expression. Lily showed her the text. Ruby's face hardened. Caroline. She's been watching us. She knew I'd go to the storage unit. We're not sending you to meet her alone. That's suicide. I know. Lily looked at the box in her lap, at the evidence of her father's crimes, at the power she now held in her hands. But I have an idea. What kind of idea? Lily smiled grimly. The kind that ends this, once and for all. The plan was simple, dangerous but simple. Lily would go to the old mill. She would meet Caroline. But she wouldn't be alone, not really. Iron and the wolves would be positioned around the perimeter, hidden, waiting for her signal. This is insane, Ruby said for the 15th time as they gathered at the clubhouse that night. We're using her as bait. I'm not bait, Lily corrected. I'm the trap. Iron studied the map spread across the table. The old mill was an abandoned grain facility about 20 miles outside town. Isolated. Multiple exits. The kind of place where things could go very wrong very fast. Caroline will have people there, he said. We have to assume she's not coming alone. Neither am I. You'll be wearing a wire. The moment things go south, you say the word and we move in. Iron looked up at her. But Lily, if something happens before you can signal, then you come anyway. Lily's voice was steady. I trust you. The words hung in the air. Iron's jaw tightened with emotion he was clearly struggling to contain. You shouldn't, he said gruffly. I'm the man who took over your father's club, who built his life on the ashes of Victor Holt's empire. You're the man who gave me a home when I had nothing, who treated me like family when you didn't have to. Lily met his eyes. Victor Holt was my father by blood, but you're the one who actually acted like one. Maggie made a soft sound. When Lily looked at her, tears were streaming down the older woman's face. Come here, Maggie said, pulling Lily into a fierce hug. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. You're not just family because you saved my life. You're family because of who you are. The bravest, strongest girl I've ever met. I'm scared, Lily admitted into Maggie's shoulder. Good. Scared keeps you sharp. Maggie pulled back, holding Lily's face in her hands. But you're not doing this alone. Never alone. Not anymore. The morning of the meeting dawned gray and cold. Lily dressed carefully, hiding the wire beneath her shirt, testing the transmitter 3 times to make sure it worked. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced like a trapped animal. You don't have to do this, Iron said one final time as she climbed into Ruby's truck. Yes, I do. Lily looked at the man who had become more father to her than Victor Holt ever could have been. Caroline won't stop until she gets what she wants, and what she wants is me. The only way to end this is to face her. If anything happens to you, it won't. Lily managed a small smile. I've survived foster homes, the streets, and drowning in a lake. I think I can handle one angry half-sister. Iron didn't smile back. Be careful. Always. The drive to the mill took 30 minutes. Ruby dropped Lily off a quarter-mile away as planned. We'll be there, Ruby said. You won't see us, but we'll be there. I know. Lily walked the rest of the way alone. The mill loomed ahead of her, rusted and decaying, a skeleton of what it had once been. The perfect place for a confrontation that had been building for 18 years. Caroline was waiting inside. She stood in the center of the main floor, flanked by 2 men who looked like they'd spent most of their lives hurting people. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe ponytail. Her cold eyes locked on Lily as she entered. You came, Caroline said. I wasn't sure you would. You threatened my family. Of course I came. Your family? Carolyn laughed. It was an ugly sound. You mean the people who stole everything that belonged to my father, the club, the money, the legacy, all of it should have been mine. Your father was a monster. My father was a king. Carolyn's voice rose with genuine fury. He built the Iron Wolves from nothing. He made them powerful, feared, respected. And then Jack Brennan betrayed him, took everything and left him to rot in prison. Victor went to prison because he was a criminal, a drug dealer, a murderer. He was my father, Caroline screamed. Then she collected herself, smoothing her features back into cold composure. And apparently he was your father too. I didn't know until yesterday. I've known for months. Carolyn began to circle Lily slowly. I found letters, old letters my father wrote from prison before he died. He talked about a woman named Grace, about a child he'd never met, his other daughter. If you knew why wait until now to come after me? Because I didn't know where you were. You were invisible. No records, no trail, nothing. Just another foster kid lost in the system. Caroline's smile was razor sharp. And then you saved Maggie Brennan's life, and suddenly there you were right in the middle of my enemy's camp. I didn't know who they were when I saved her. I didn't know any of this. Does it matter? You're here now. You have access to things I want. The money, Lily said flatly. Victor's hidden accounts. Among other things. Carolyn stopped circling and faced Lily directly. My father told me where the money was, but he set up safeguards. Multiple signatures required, account numbers split between different people. And you think I have some of those numbers. I know you do. Your mother had them. That's why she was able to run to hide for so long. She had leverage over my father's insurance to keep him from coming after her. Lily thought about the box in her mother's storage unit, the documents she'd barely had time to examine before coming here. Maybe I do, she said carefully. But why would I give them to you? Because if you don't, everyone you care about dies. Carolyn's voice was matter-of-fact. The Brennans, Ruby, everyone at that pathetic clubhouse. I have people positioned right now waiting for my signal. Lily's blood went cold, but she kept her face neutral. You're bluffing. Am I? Carolyn pulled out her phone and showed Lily a photo. It was the Brennan house taken from a distance. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible, was a figure with a rifle. One phone call, Caroline said. That's all it takes. Lily's mind raced. The plan had been to get Caroline talking, to gather evidence, to wait for Iron and the others to move in. But if there were shooters at the house, okay, Lily said, her voice shaking. Okay, I'll tell you what you want to know. Just don't hurt them. Carolyn smiled triumphantly. I knew you'd see reason. But first I want to know something. Why do you hate them so much, Iron, Maggie, the club? They didn't do anything to you personally. They took everything from me. Carolyn's composure cracked again. My father loved that club more than he loved me. He built it, shaped it, made it into something powerful. And then Jack Brennan swooped in and stole it all. Turned my father's legacy into some pathetic charity organization. He made it better. He made it weak. Carolyn stepped closer, her face twisted with rage. The Iron Wolves used to be feared. Now they throw toy drives and help old ladies cross the street. It's disgusting. It's called being decent human beings. It's called betraying everything my father stood for. Lily shook her head slowly. You know what I think? I think you don't actually care about the club or the money or any of it. I think you just can't stand the fact that your father loves someone other than you. Carolyn's slap came out of nowhere, snapping Lily's head to the side. Pain exploded across her cheek. Don't you dare, Carolyn hissed. Don't you dare talk about my father's love. He loved me. Only me. You were nothing to him. A mistake. An accident. Lily tasted blood where her teeth had cut her cheek. She straightened slowly, meeting Caroline's furious gaze. If I was nothing, why did he keep letters about me? Why did he make sure I was provided for in those account numbers? Why did he tell my mother to take care of me if anything happened to him? Caroline's face went white. That's right, Lily continued. I read the documents, all of them. Victor didn't just set up safeguards. He set up a trust for me, his other daughter, the one he never got to meet. You're lying. Am I? Lily reached slowly into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is a copy of his instructions. The originals are somewhere safe, but this, she held it up. This proves that Victor Holt wanted me to have half of everything. Half the money, half the legacy. Carolyn snatched the paper from her hand and read it. Her face cycled through emotions, shock, denial, fury, before settling into something cold and dangerous. This doesn't matter, she said finally. You can't collect if you're dead. She nodded at her two guards. They moved toward Lily, hands reaching for weapons. Now, Lily said clearly. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the mill exploded with activity. Iron crashed through a side door, gun raised. Ruby came through another entrance flanked by Tony and Bear. Within seconds, Caroline's guards were surrounded, outgunned, outmaneuvered. Don't move, Iron roared at Caroline. It's over. But Caroline was faster than anyone expected. She lunged at Lily, pulling a knife from somewhere, the blade flashing in the dim light. Lily reacted on instinct. She grabbed Caroline's wrist, twisted, and drove her elbow into her half-sister's face. Caroline stumbled back, blood streaming from her nose, the knife clattering to the ground. You little bitch, Caroline spat, lunging again. This time Lily was ready. She sidestepped, grabbed Caroline's arm, and used her momentum to flip her onto the concrete floor. It wasn't elegant, just desperate self-defense she'd learned on the streets. But it worked. Caroline lay on her back, gasping, Lily's foot on her chest. You're not going to win, Caroline snarled. Even if you stop me today, others will come. My father's people, his allies. They'll never let you have what's his. Then let them come, Lily pressed down harder. I've survived worse than you, worse than any of them. Arn appeared beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Easy, kid. We got her. Lily stepped back, her whole body shaking with adrenaline. Ruby was already cuffing Caroline's guards. Bear had his gun trained on Caroline as she was hauled to her feet. What about the shooters at the house? Lily asked, remembering the photo Caroline had shown her. Handled, Iron said grimly. We had people watching. They neutralized the threat before we even got here. Relief flooded through Lily so intensely she nearly collapsed. Maggie was safe. Everyone was safe. It's over, she whispered. Not quite. Iron turned to Caroline. You're going to prison. For a long time. Conspiracy, attempted murder, extortion, the list goes on. You can't prove anything, Caroline sneered. Actually, we can. Ruby held up her phone. Everything you said in here was recorded. Every threat, every admission. You're done, Caroline. For the first time, real fear flickered across Caroline's face. You can't do this. I'm Victor Holt's daughter. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, Iron said coldly. I suggest you use it. They called the police. Detective Chen arrived within the hour along with a team that took Caroline and her guards into custody. The evidence from the mill combined with what Lily had found in the storage unit was enough to put Caroline away for years. You did good, Chen told Lily as they watched Caroline being loaded into a squad car. That took guts. It took desperation, Lily corrected. I just wanted it to be over. Well, it is now. At least this part. Chen hesitated. There's going to be a lot of legal stuff to sort through. The money, the accounts, Victor's estate. It could take years. I don't care about the money. Even so, you might end up with quite a bit of it. What will you do? Lily thought about the question. A week ago, she would have said she'd take the money and run, start over somewhere new, disappear. But that was before the lake, before Maggie, before Iron and Ruby and the whole chaotic family of the Iron Wolves. I'll figure it out, she said finally, with help. 1 month later, the summer sun blazed over Thunder Lake as the Iron Wolves gathered for their monthly barbecue. Music played from speakers set up near the shore. The smell of grilling meat filled the air. Children ran between the picnic tables, laughing and playing. Lily stood at the edge of the water, her toes sinking into the sand. The lake sparkled in the afternoon light, peaceful and beautiful. Nothing like the dark, murky depths she remembered from the day she'd saved Maggie. You okay? Maggie appeared beside her, 2 cups of lemonade in hand. She offered one to Lily. Yeah. Lily took the cup. Just thinking. About what? About how different everything is. A month ago, I was hiding under that dock over there, starving alone, convinced I'd never have anything good in my life. Lily shook her head slowly. Now I have a home, a family, a future. You earned it? Maggie said firmly. Every bit of it. I almost died earning it. But you didn't. Maggie put her arm around Lily's shoulders. You survived. That's what you do. It's who you are. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the water, listening to the sounds of the party behind them. I talked to my mom yesterday, Lily said finally. Maggie looked at her with surprise. You did phone call. The prison lets her have one a week now that she's behaving. Lily took a deep breath. It was hard. A lot of things I wasn't ready to hear, but also, I don't know, it felt like the beginning of something. Forgiveness. Maybe, someday. Lily turned to face Maggie. She's getting out in 2 years. Good behavior. She asked if she could see me when she does. What did you tell her? I told her I'd think about it. Lily paused. I also told her about you, about Iron, about all of this. She cried. Good tears or bad tears? Both, I think. She's grateful that I found people who actually care about me. Lily's voice wavered. She said she always prayed I'd have a real family someday, even when she couldn't be that for me herself. Maggie pulled her into a tight hug. You have a family now, a big, loud, slightly crazy family that would do anything for you. I know. Lily hugged her back. That's the miracle. Iron's voice boomed across the beach. Lily, Maggie, get over here. We're taking the family photo. They walked toward the gathering of leather-vested bikers and their families. Someone had set up a camera on a tripod and people were jostling for position in front of it. Lily, you're in the middle, Iron commanded, right next to me and Maggie. That's the VIP spot, Tony protested good-naturedly. She earned it, Bear said. She's the one who saved our queen. Damn right she did, Ruby agreed. Lily found herself pushed to the center of the group, Iron on one side, Maggie on the other. Around them stood dozens of people she'd come to know over the past month, rough, tough, fiercely loyal people who had accepted her without question. Everyone smile, the photographer called. Lily smiled, not the fake smile she'd perfected in foster homes, the one that said, I'm fine, when she wasn't. This was real. This was joy. The camera flashed. After the photo, as the party continued around her, Lily walked back to the water's edge. She reached into her shirt and pulled out the 2 pendants that hung around her neck, her mother's silver ring on its worn chain, and the new one, a small iron wolf given to her by the club at her official welcome ceremony last week. 2 symbols, 2 lives, 2 families, the old one broken and scarred but still part of who she was, the new one forged in water and fire, chosen rather than given by birth. Water can save you or kill you, her mother had said years ago in that chlorine-filled pool. The water had almost killed her, had almost killed Maggie, had almost drowned every hope Lily had ever had of belonging somewhere. But in the end, it had saved her. Not the water itself, but what she'd done with it. The choice she'd made to dive in, to risk everything to save a stranger who became family. Hey! Lily turned. A young man about her age was walking toward her, Mike's nephew, she remembered. Jake. He'd been at the party earlier, watching her from across the barbecue with nervous eyes. Hi, she said. I'm Jake. We met last week, but I don't know if you remember. I remember. Jake shuffled his feet awkwardly. I just wanted to say, what you did was really cool. Saving Maggie and then standing up to Caroline. That took guts. Thanks. And I was wondering, he took a deep breath. There's this diner in town, really good pancakes. Maybe you'd want to go sometime with me. Lily blinked. Was he asking her out? Nobody had ever asked her out before. She'd been invisible for so long, just a foster kid, a runaway, a ghost. But she wasn't invisible anymore. Sure, she heard herself say. I'd like that. Jake's face lit up with a smile. Really great. I mean, cool. That's cool. I'll text you. You don't have my number. Right. He fumbled for his phone, nearly dropping it in the sand. Lily laughed, a real laugh, free and unguarded. Here. She took his phone and typed in her number. Now you do. Awesome. I'll call you. Text you. Whatever. Jake was backing away, still grinning. See you around, Lily. He almost walked into a picnic table. Lily bit her lip to keep from laughing again. Someone's got an admirer, Ruby said, and appearing out of nowhere. Shut up. He's cute. Nice kid, too. Mike's raised him right. Ruby bumped her shoulder. You deserve some normal teenage stuff after everything you have been through. I don't even know what normal is. Neither do any of us. Ruby gestured at the party around them. We just make it up as we go along. The sun was starting to set now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Just like the day Lily had first hidden under the dock, watching these strangers dreaming of food she couldn't afford and a life she couldn't imagine. Now she was one of them. Iron walked over, a beer in hand, and stood beside her. They watched the sunset together in comfortable silence. I've been thinking about something, Lily said finally. What's that? The money. Victor's money. I could just let it go. Let Caroline's lawyers fight over it. Walk away from all of it. You could, Iron agreed. Nobody would blame you. But I'm not going to. Lily turned to face him. That money came from suffering, from drugs and violence and people getting hurt. But it doesn't have to stay that way. What are you thinking, Saul? I'm thinking about my mother, about the foster kids like me who don't have anyone looking out for them, about all the people Victor hurt who never got justice. Little Lily took a deep breath. I want to start a foundation. Use that money to help people instead of hurting them. Iron was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a rare, genuine smile that transformed his scarred face. Victor would hate that, he said. I know, that's part of why I want to do it. Iron laughed. You've got his fire, his stubbornness, but you've got something he never had. What a good heart. Iron put his hand on her shoulder. Your mother's gift to you, the only inheritance that actually matters. Lily felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. Thank you, she said, for everything, for taking me in, for believing in me, for treating me like family even before you knew who I really was. You're family because of who you are, Iron said, but because of whose blood runs in your veins. Remember that. Maggie called from the barbecue. Jack, Lily, dinner's ready. Coming, Iron shouted back. He looked at Lily. Ready. She looked at the lake one last time, at the dock where she'd hidden, at the water where she'd nearly died, saving a stranger who became a mother. Yeah, she said, I'm ready. They walked together toward the gathering, toward the people waiting with plates of food and warm smiles, toward the life Lily had never dared to dream she could have. The night closed in around Thunder Lake, but for the first time in her 18 years, Lily Cole wasn't afraid of the dark. She had found her family. She had found her home. She had found herself, and she was never going to be invisible again. The stars came out one by one above the lake, and somewhere in the darkness, the wolves howled their welcome. Lily Cole had finally come home.